Hello everybody, we're going to do a quick tutorial here about showing the Oculus Go controller and how it can interact with game objects in Unity. So in this game, it's designed with a basic periscope. It's associated with the first person player and the camera. They're all kind of connected. There is a rotate periscope script here. There's various variables passed into that, and there's a rigid body object on the first person. So let's take a look at the script. Here's the script that was associated with the main first-person player and the camera. There's 2 and 3D vectors, which I'll explain in a minute, and then there's basically the update function here, which runs per frame. Actually, before that, there's the start function. You're going to get the rigid body object off of the current component. Now, the current component is the first-person player. You can see the rigid body object, and that's fed into that variable, the body2 variable. So that's what we're going to affect in the actual functions here. So when this runs, first thing it has to do is determine, is the user using a left or right controller. It's going to get the access to OVR access to primary touchpad input. That's part of the physical Oculus Go controller. I'll show you the diagram here. Here's the access to primary touchpad. That's that. And when you click on it, that input, it's basically going to take the X and Y coordinates off that touchpad. So you can see here, and that's fed into a 2D vector, which will correspondingly receive the XY values. And then it knows, okay, where are you pressing? So for turning only on the periscope, we only worried about the X values. Are you on the right or the left of that touchpad? And that is interpreted by design to be the user wants to turn the periscope. So now there's a 3D vector here. It's Euler angular velocity 2. That will receive it. But see, now that we're going to feed the X value off the touchpad into the Y value of the 3D vector. Because why? Because the turning on this will be on the Y axis. So that's what has to be manipulated or changed through the input from the touchpad. So that's why the X value is passed into the Y value there, and that will affect it directly. That's the only thing we're changing. You can see the X and Z's rotation is 0. So once again, as you press on each right or left, that'll feed in a positive or negative value into the script here. So the next thing it does is have to determine, is it turning at the current point in time? So you could see it'll check, is the Euler angular velocity, the Y value, greater than or equal to 0. If it is, it's interpreted as turning. The user's pressing on the touchpad, and it should be turning the first person, the periscope. So Unity uses a thing called quaternion, and there's a variable here which will we're going to feed that 3D vector in, which is the degree of turning times this delta time value. So that will in turn will operate on the rigid body object, the body2 variable there in the first person player, which has the camera in it, and it is essentially the periscope. So let's try one more thing. This has to be emulated during this tutorial on desktop because I don't have that connected. So we're going to simulate it with the left bracket key and the right bracket key on the keyboard. If you press the left, it's going to turn by a fixed amount, minus 0.5, and in turn, when you turn right, a plus 0.5. So and then the rest is the same. It'll feed that into the delta rotation, that quaternion variable, and then that will be operated on the rigid body. So if we run this, and then we're going to click run, I will click the left and right bracket keys on the keyboard, and you you'll see it turning. So it'll take the 0.5 times 15, which is in turn the 7.5, the amount of turning. So negative 7.5 to the right plus the 7.5 to the left. So you can see on the y-axis up there, it'll be its values are changing, reflecting that you're turning on that axis. And that's what we want. So let's try. Well, here once again, as you press, that simulates that pressing on that touchpad. So let's manipulate the degree of turning, which will be multiplied times the rotation speed. So now I'm making it much bigger. I'm making it 5.0 negative to the left and 5.0 to the right, 0.0 to the right. So that's much bigger than the 0.5. So let's try running it. And when I turn, now I'll click the left and right bracket key on the keyboard. The turns will be much more dramatic. So now it's that 5 times 15, which is this. Now it's 75 euler angular velocity. See, it's much more dramatic, right and left, and you can see the y-axis rotation amount is huge now, so it's real fast. So we're going to feed that larger quaternion in and Euler angle vector into to affect the rotation of the rigid body object. So at this point, maybe go the other way. Let's try a much less degree of turning. These are fixed increments on the touchpad. It would depend on where on the touchpad you touch. But here for the test, we'll just pick 0.1, right or left. So it's much smaller. 0.1 times 15. So you should get, should just be 1.5 to the right or the left. So it'll be real small. These will be really small turns. So this is simulating like touching more to the center of the touchpad and a much smaller angle of turn and rate. See, it's only minus and plus 1.5. So the goal in this tutorial is just to kind of show the interactivity between the physical oscilloscope controller and how to use vectors 2 3D to manipulate and affect turns of game objects in Unity.